I must rise above the flames.
Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I'm Lupinefiasco. This is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today we are playing our favorite FaB Rising Rebellion. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games I played on the Talishar.net client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my games. I will talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now, then compare that to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events and walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the list I'm playing here or try it for yourself, there is a FaB deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see every new episode of Daily FaB Gameplay in your video feed. There is also a link to my Blue Sky, my Discord, and my Patreon, where you can get access to the matchup guide for this deck and for all of my decks forever. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the action. As far as stress testing goes, I really like that I queued into Jarl while I was testing this new list. Historically, Guardian is a bad matchup for Ninja, and Jarl especially so, because of all of his Frostbites, Stalagmite. Here we see all in Ice Cap, Blizzard. It's very possible that FaB just draws 4 reds and can't play through Arctic Incarceration, but I believe the deck is filled with enough yellows and blues that it is pretty unlikely that you can't do something on your turn, and just being able to pressure Guardian is usually good, right? Just pushing damage, making them respond, making them react to what we're doing. Our general Jarl game plan here is kind of the same as it is with Syndra or Aurora, in that we're not trying to use equipment at all until we're approaching the end of the game. So thankfully, Tiger Stripe Shuko and Fiendal Spring Tunic are passive effects. You don't have to use them in order to get value, and especially you don't have to break them, but for Mask of the Pouncing Lynx and Snapdragon Scalers, they don't have value until they are broken. So unless we really just need to get out of jail free card with Snapdragon Scalers, or we find some insane 10 value turn with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, I'm not looking to break either one of them until doing so basically wins the game. I'm not blocking with Pouncing Lynx, I'm not blocking with Shuko. We kind of just can't block a dominated Oakenold anyway, but when you see an opportunity to break your equipment and it doesn't just win on the spot, really reconsider if now is a good time, because any Frostbite on an all-red hand is basically worth 3 points of value if we have to pitch Brand with Cinderclaw or Rising Resentment or Display Loyalty to play an attack to pay through the Frostbite. That Frostbite got 3 points of value, and we really want to keep Jarl off of that free value. We won the game and decided to go second. That is going to let us block anything that Jarl does on turn 0. Now, Crumble to Eternity does take Jarl's action point, so we don't get the opportunity to block for free value, but thankfully this hand is very good. We're going to attack with Brand with Cinderclaw, then Display Loyalty, then pitch yellow Brand with Cinderclaw to attack with Searing Emberblade. We'll activate FaB to pick up and play the Phoenix Flame, and then we will Arsenal Shelter from the Storm. And it's a small sequencing thing, but we do want to make sure that we play Display Loyalty before we attack with the Emberblade. The reason being that if Jarl blocks the Display Loyalty with Stalagmite, and especially if he blocks it with Stalagmite and All in Ice Cap, then we can pitch our Brand with Cinderclaw to activate FaB for 1 resource, and then pick up and play our Phoenix Flame. If we attack with the Emberblade first, and we get Stalagmited, then we have to pitch Display Loyalty to FaB to pick up the Phoenix Flame. We also have to pitch Shelter from the Storm. So we end up doing the same amount of damage, but we don't get an arsenal. But if we save our yellow for Emberblade, then we do get to arsenal the Shelter from the Storm, and I don't expect the defense reaction to be extremely relevant, but it is 4 points of value when played from Arsenal, so if we're just comparing 4 points of value to 0, then 4 is much better. We deal the same amount of damage, and the only thing we have to change is the order in which we do things. Drawing an interesting hand here where we could immediately cash in a fealty in order to make Dragon Power Draconic and attack for 5. I'm not really interested in doing that. What I am interested in is pitching one of these blues to pay for 2. That accomplishes 2 things. The first is it makes us resilient to blue Winter's Bite follow-up to this yellow Winter's Bite, where we will float a resource and be able to use that to pay the cost of a blue Winter's Bite. Alternatively, maybe Jarl pitches a blue and plays Channel Lake Frigid and then pitches another blue and attacks with Titan's Fist. We have a floating resource so that we can play Shelter from the Storm from Arsenal. So we wouldn't want to discard here really anyway. This hand really lends itself to pitching, but in particular we want to pitch just because that pays for a few other effects. And as far as what we're pitching, it kind of doesn't matter. I think pitching the Energy Potion is fine. It lets us hold on to this Dragon Power in case we need to block for some reason. But really our intention is to play Oath of Loyalty, play Ronin Renegade, pitch a blue to attack with Searing Emberblade, and then activate FaB to play Phoenix Flame. So there really isn't, it kind of doesn't matter. And here we've even got this Titan's Fist is dominated thanks to the Crumble to Eternity, so we don't need to block with our blue anyway. We could block with something else. I could cover this with Ronin Renegade and Shelter from the Storm from Arsenal, and then on my turn I get to Oath of Loyalty, pitch blue for Searing Emberblade, activate FaB and attack with the Phoenix Flame, but we don't need to do that. We get more damage by just taking the Frostbite and paying through it, because we will have an extraneous resource after we Oath Ronin Emberblade FaB. FaB's activation is free, so we can afford to pay for this Frostbite and still push damage. Why did I block with Shelter from the Storm when it didn't cover enough damage to prevent the Frostbite? In my experience, leaving D-React in Arsenal against Jarl is a bad idea, because you can put yourself in a position where Jarl just disrupts or taxes you enough that you cannot play your entire hand. And if you get stuck with an attack in hand, but there's also a defense reaction in Arsenal, you're going to take an intellect penalty. And there are enough Jarl lines that will produce disruption, but not let you block, that as far as my testing has shown, if you have a defense reaction in Arsenal and you can get value from it by blocking just raw damage, if you can block a Titan's Fist for 4 with Shelter from the Storm or Loyalty Beyond the Grave, just do it. Don't get caught with this defense reaction rotting in your arsenal and preventing you from setting up bigger turns. At this point we get Stalagmite from Jarl, that's fine. We won't get to attack with Emberblade this turn, but we do still get to activate FaB and play the Phoenix Flame. We're way too early in this game for me to think about breaking Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. Not only does 6 damage when Jarl is at 31 represent a lot less total percentage of his life total than when he's at something like 10 or even single digits, but we've seen Jarl have Icequake, Yellow Winter's Bite. We can assume he's on Blue Winter's Bite. He's probably playing something like a Frostfang. There are way too many cards that he will have that start generating Frostbites in our open armor slots. I do not want to get taxed on turn 3. I've got kind of an awkward hand here, just based on the fact that I am generally trying to avoid arsenaling cards against Jarl. We've already seen him block with 1 Plow Under. We can assume he's on 2 more. We also know that Guardian plays Command and Conquer, so generally if I can stay off Arsenal, I will. This hand cannot really stay off Arsenal. It could, but we just lose some value. So what I mean is, we can easily play Ronin Renegade, then activate Fiendal Spring Tunic, play Flame Call Awakening, get our second Phoenix Flame from deck, play second Ronin Renegade, play Phoenix Flame, activate FaB, pick up and play Phoenix Flame. We could also pitch the second Phoenix Flame and play Flame Call Awakening. But if we do that, I only have 2 Flamecall Awakenings in this deck, so we don't have a way to get that Phoenix Flame back from the bottom of our deck. And I want 2 Phoenix Flames in my graveyard because it makes FaB basically impossible to fatigue. And I don't think that's what our Jarl is trying to do, but it is something to consider. And so my line is going to be Ronin, Tunic, Flamecall, get a Phoenix Flame, play Ronin, play Phoenix Flame, activate FaB, play second Phoenix Flame, get my Shuko trigger, and then Arsenal Flamecall Awakening. Not because I'm trying to set up for next turn, just because I don't have a good way to use this second Flamecall Awakening, and if nothing else, it and a blue is a 2-card 6. Nothing flashy, but still better than losing out on the second Phoenix Flame. Second Phoenix Flame also gives us the line of picking up a Phoenix Flame and bottoming it to Enlightened Strike, or picking up a Phoenix Flame and pitching it to play Art of the Dragon Fire. There are reasons to have a second Phoenix Flame. I mentioned that FaB with 2 flames in the art is impossible to fatigue. The way that works is if you have 2 Phoenix Flames in your graveyard and 2 blues in your hand, at the end of your opponent's turn, you can pitch one of your blues to activate FaB and get one of the 2 Phoenix Flames in your graveyard. On your turn, you play a Phoenix Flame for 0 with Go Again, then you pitch your second blue to attack with Searing Emberblade for 3 Go Again, and with the floating resource, activate FaB to pick up the Phoenix Flame in your graveyard and then play it. And it will either attack for 1 if you don't have Tiger Stripe Shuko, or 2 if you do have Tiger Stripe Shuko. And you spent 0 cards from your deck, so you're doing 4 or 5 damage a turn without losing cards from your deck. It means that the other 2 cards in your hand can be used for blocking or more efficient damage. FaB is just very, very hard to fatigue in a way that Syndra is not, so having those 2 Phoenix Flames is just really good. We're briefly now going to talk about another important concept in FaB when you're playing against an ice hero. And there's only the one ice hero, but it is the way that cost reduction interacts with cost increases. And the interaction between the two is that cost increases happen before cost decreases. So currently, with this Frostbite, FaB's ability costs 4. It costs 3 innately, and then the Frostbite adds 1 to it. But we have 4 Draconic Chainlinks, so FaB's ability is discounted by 4. FaB's ability would always be discounted by 4 here, but the fact that it costs 3 means that usually that doesn't matter. You only need 3 Draconic Chainlinks to make FaB free. But that Frostbite takes FaB's ability up to 4, and then gets discounted back down to 0, rather than FaB's ability costing 0, then the Frostbite adding 1. So that's really important when you're activating FaB. It's also really important when you're playing Ignite, or when you are using your ability from Rising Resentment. So Rising Resentment lets you banish a card from your hand and then discount it based on the number of Draconic Chainlinks you have. Well, banish a card with cost less than the number of Draconic Chainlinks you have. So Rising Resentment lets you banish a 0-cost attack from hand if it is your only Draconic Chainlink. Most of the time that doesn't matter, there's no reason to do it. But let's say you attack with a Rising Resentment for 3 Go Again, and your opponent blocks it with their Stalagmite. They take 1, you get a Frostbite. You can banish a 0-cost attack from your hand and play it for free, because the Frostbite makes it cost 1, and then Rising Resentment makes it cost 0. So that's another way that you can cheat Frostbites with FaB, with your FaB activation, with Rising Resentment, and now with new Hunted card, Ignite. Back to this game, we've got Frostfang coming in for 4 with Dominate. On hit, we will either discard or pitch 2. Jarl is also representing Tunic Pummel. And I am very willing to put Jarl on Pummel here. For one thing, I can't block 4 without using armor. This has Dominate. So we have a few different lines. I am willing to discard Enlightened Strike to Frostfang. If there is no Pummel, if this is just 4 and we have to discard, then we can, well actually we can just pay with Salt the Wound. So if this is just Frostfang, then we pitch Salt the Wound to satisfy the condition on our turn. We can pitch Dragon Power to attack with Flamecall Awakening. We can use our 2 resources to pay for Searing Emberblade, and then we can activate FaB. Either activate FaB by pitching E-Strike to get a Phoenix Flame and then E-Strike for 7, or we just E-Strike for 7. If this is a pummel, then we have a couple things to think about. We will have to lose 2 cards. We'll still pitch Salt the Wound to Frostfang, but we will also likely discard E-Strike to the pummel effect. Then on our turn we have 2 options. We can either E-Strike for 7, bottoming Dragon Power, or we can pitch Dragon Power to attack with Flamecall Awakening for 3 go again, then attack with Searing Emberblade for 3 go again, and arsenal the E-Strike. E-Strike for 7, keep Flamecall in arsenal, is 7 points of damage, but we lose our fealty because we didn't play a Draconic card or make a fealty. Flamecall Awakening Emberblade is only 6 points of damage, but we keep our fealty, and to me that is more important. So what I would like to do is discard E-Strike to pummel, pitch Salt the Wound to Frostfang, and then Flamecall, Emberblade, Arsenal E-Strike. What this pitching the blue tells me is that I'm going to E-Strike for 7 and keep Salt the Wound in deck, which is good. If this was my intention, if I wanted to E-Strike for 7, keeping Salt in deck is the better idea, because for one thing it's a finisher, it's better when we draw it. It also is a tutor target with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. So let's say that we draw, our next hand is 3 Lava Bursts and Tenacity, and we end up having to block with all of them for whatever reason. We still have a finisher in the deck where we would not have had a finisher previously if we had blocked with that Salt Wound. We're going to pay 1 here. We're going to do it with Dragon Power. We've seen Yellow Winter's Bite and Yellow Frostfang. I can pretty safely assume that my opponent is playing Red Frostfang as well. So having 2 floating resources is just better than like pitching Salt the Wound to that Winter's Bite and then having to pitch a red to the Frostfang effect. We are just getting Titan's Fisted here, so my line is going to be to not block. We'll take 4. We are then going to play Rising Resentment, play Display Loyalty, pitch Salt the Wound for Searing Emberblade, then activate FaB and finish with the Phoenix Flame, keeping this Flamecall Awakening in arsenal. If we instead get blocked by All-in Ice Cap and Gauntlet of the Boreal Domain, or All-in Ice Cap and a 2-block Ice card from hand on the Display of Loyalty, then we can pitch Salt the Wound to attack with Flamecall Awakening, using 2 resources, and then activate FaB and play the Phoenix Flame. That's obviously worse for us, but it is a way that we get to play around the Ice Cap effect. We will see if that's what's going to happen. So far, Jarl is just taking the damage. We are getting to the point in the game where Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is looking good against a normal hero. Against Jarl, it is still looking pretty bad because we don't want to open up that head slot. Our opponent still has, I believe, presumably 4 Winter's Bites left, assuming he isn't on reds. If he's on red Winter's Bite as well, then he has 7. Probably 5 copies of Frostfang, 2 more copies of Icequake. Right, this is looking really grim if we just open up our head armor slot here. But I am a little worried about Jarl keeping this 5-card hand. The fact that our Mask of the Pouncing Lynx has had a Battle-Worn counter on it since the start of the game makes me a little nervous about Mangle. I'm not really going to be able to block Mangle very well. A lot of my cards block for 2. I'm going to need to use 3 of them to cover up the crush effect in that case, and if Jarl is keeping a 5-card hand, that makes me think, well, maybe there's a pummel behind it too. So, in hindsight, I believe that it is better to just end the turn with that Phoenix Flame and let Jarl show me that he has a dominated Mangle or a pummeled Mangle. But I can absolutely understand why I felt like now was the time to cash in Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. Let's get my 6 rather than lose it, and now we have to deal with this Frostfang, and we might even have to deal with a pummeled Frostfang. I'm assuming that there is a pummel behind this, because Jarl didn't block anything. So if this is pummeled Frostfang, it's still bad. We still lose 2 cards, but we don't have a Frostbite, and we do have our Tunic up on next turn, so I get to attack with Brand with Cinderclaw, then Blaze Headlong, then use Tunic to activate FaB, play the Phoenix Flame, and our Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is still online, so now maybe Jarl gives us armor where he wouldn't before. But now, Frostfang Pummel takes 2 cards from us, and in order to play one of our 2 remaining cards, we have to pitch the other one. So kind of a junky hand from Jarl here, a lot of reds and yellows. That means he can't play and fuse the Oakenold, which is what he would have liked to do. But this Frostfang for 9 is still really bad for us. We're going to go down to 17. We lose 2 of these cards, which are going to be, in this case, Demonstrate Devotion and Shelter from the Storm. And then we only get to send a 2-card 4. We have to pitch Brand of the Cinderclaw to play Blaze Headlong. We could play Shelter from the Storm here by pitching Demonstrate Devotion, but then we need to discard one of our 2 reds to the pummel, and then we discard the 2nd red to the Frostfang. So I only get 4 points out of this hand, and I would rather them be offensive than defensive. Despite the fact that Jarl is now in a very good position, the fact that we're taking a Frostbite every turn, that we are only ahead by 8 points rather than the 17 that we were up at the end of our last turn, Jarl still has to respect Blaze Headlong for 4. This represents almost half of his remaining life total. He does have the sink below, so we're not going to push any damage. Jarl is on 3 cards with Spring Tunic, so this could be CNC Pummel, Frostfang Pummel. If he found the 2nd red pummel in his deck, maybe he's on yellows too. We've got a yellow Winter's Bite. It's going to give us a Frostbite, and then we are going to want to... I think we're going to want to pitch our Brand with Cinderclaw here. Again, if it's another Winter's Bite, then we either use our floating resource to pay through the blue Winter's Bite, or we can pitch another red to pay through the yellow Winter's Bite. If this is not Winter's Bite, if it's just Hammer, then we can take 4, go down to 13, and we have some interesting sequencing decisions to make on our turn. I believe the best way to sequence this hand is to play Ignite by pitching Rising Resentment, then we use our Spring Tunic to attack with the Emberblade, and we end with Art of the Dragon Blood. If Jarl is just blocking, if he doesn't have a Blizzard here, or defense reactions, maybe we're really pushing some damage, we could break Fealty for Art of the Dragon Blood, which gives us our 3rd Draconic Chain Link to activate FaB, and play the Phoenix Flame, which comes in for 2 because of our Shuko. So we can get further into the turn before we have to really decide whether we're doing that. Choosing instead to play Rising Resentment, so this line is looking like Rising Resentment, Ignite, Tunic, Emberblade, Phoenix Flame, which comes in for a total of 3-2-3-2, so a 3-card 10. If we had pitched the Rising Resentment to play the Ignite and take that line, instead we get to 2, 3, 4, 2. So if we break our fealty, we come in for 11 rather than 10, which I could see being better. Jarl just has the Blizzard, which we can't afford to pay through while also clearing the Frostbite. So we will just send 3 points of damage, Arsenal, Ignite, and try again next turn. Thankfully, our Tunic is up, so we can pay through blue Winter's Bite on Jarl's turn by activating Tunic ahead of the Jarl trigger and then using our floating resource to pay for Winter's Bite. We'll see what happens. The fact that we get a card from Jarl here is pretty cool. He showed us Crumble, so I really hope it isn't just Pitch Blue Oakenold fused with Crumble. Here's the blue Winter's Bite. We'll activate Tunic in response to Jarl. Don't let your Jarl trigger resolve first, or else you will have to pay for your Spring Tunic. And we just have E-Strike coming in for this is going to be 7. So we have a few lines that we could take. We could block with Warmonger's Diplomacy, take 4, go down to 9, and then on our turn, look to do something like Ignite from Arsenal, First Tenant strike first, Fire Tenant strike first, pitch Dragon Power to Emberblade, activate FaB, play the Phoenix Flame, then play Lava Burst, and that is 2, 3, 4, 1, 6 for a total of 16. We could also take 7, go to 6, keep our Dragon Power, and then we're looking at a line like Ignite, Fire Tenant strike first, pitch Warmonger's Diplomacy for Searing Emberblade, play Lava Burst, use Snapdragons, activate FaB, play the Phoenix Flame, use Fealty, play Dragon Power. And if we take that line, then we are getting 2, 5, 9, 15, 16, 21 points of damage. So we're either looking at a 5-card 21 if we go full offense, or we're looking at a 5-card 19 if we block with this Warmongers and then send 16 points of damage. I like the second line. I like sending less damage, but we get to keep our Snapdragon Scalers, which is relevant for 2 reasons. The first is it unbricks a potentially bad hand that has no go again. The other is, while we haven't seen Jarl play 2 ice cards in the same turn, we know that it is possible for him to do so. If he goes yellow Winter's Bite, blue Winter's Bite, yeah, pitching a blue looks good because we pay for both Winter's Bite effects, but now we pick up 2 Frostbites, and it's going to be really hard for us to play through 2 Frostbites. So if I'm making this call now, I am blocking this E-Strike with Warmonger's Diplomacy. It also puts us into a position where Dominated Oakenol doesn't just kill us. We can put a point of armor in front of it and go down to 1, and then be able to crack back with 2 cards. So I think the conservative play there was better. We lose only a bit of value on this turn, but we are at a more comfortable life total, and we're still getting cards out of Jarl's hand here, right? If we're pushing 16 points of damage, he needs to give us at least 2 cards, even if one of them is just paying for quick dodge flexors, or he's giving us all of his armor, which includes Fandal Spring Tunic. Him losing Tunic takes him off of a 3-card Frostfang or CNC Pummel play. All I'm saying is we get less value, but are in what I believe is a better game state. We also get to keep a Fealty, which is potentially very strong, depending on whether we find another Art of the Dragon Blood, or Art of Dragon Fire, or even our 3rd blue Dragon Power. But we'll see what Jarl wants to give us here. He's got 2 more quick dodge flexors with just his floating 2. He could make it a 3rd if he uses the Tunic. 2 cards in hand could be CNC. More terrifying, it could be Frostfang. It seems like Jarl is interested in trying to keep these 2 cards as much as he can. But at this point, we've committed to the Lava Burst line. I mean, we could just activate FaB, play Lava Burst, Arsenal Dragon Power, and that might not be a bad line. At the same time, I really don't want to open myself to Plow Under. I believe Jarl still does have a 3rd one that we haven't seen. We also haven't seen any Command and Conquers. If we've seen one, and it was used on blocks and I didn't register it, but we definitely have not been attacked by Command and Conquer yet. So we are now pushing 6 points of damage. This is not lethal. Jarl can use the Tunic to pay for flexors and go down to 2. Jarl could also block with the Tunic, then use the resource to pay for flexors, going down to 3. Jarl with 1 card and no Tunic, no armor, is still a fine place for us to be, but the fact that we don't kill Jarl here is not good. Also, because we attacked with this Dragon Power, we gave Jarl an outlet to get full value out of his quick dodge flexors, and that's also bad for us. So we're going to take a Frostbite from the Jarl trigger. We then need to discard to the Winter's Bite because we have a handful of reds, so we can't just pitch a card and stay resilient to fatigue. I'm not going to make the right decision here. The obvious right call is Loyalty Beyond the Grave, because we want it in our graveyard anyway. I believe what I'm going to do instead is discard one of my Art of the Dragons and then pitch the other one to play Oath of Loyalty. That's just worse. That is a worse line. What would be a better line is discard Loyalty Beyond the Grave, then pitch Art of Dragon Fire to play Art of Dragon Blood and Arsenal Oath of Loyalty, or even go the other way. Pitch Art of Dragon Fire to play Oath of Loyalty and Arsenal Art of Dragon Blood. We either Arsenal a starter or a finisher. Loyalty Beyond the Grave here is kind of just a detriment. It'll block 3 eventually sometime, but what if Jarl plays Winter's Bite and then attacks with Titan's Fist? What if Jarl plays Frostfang and the Jarl trigger gives us a Frostbite before we can defend with Loyalty Beyond the Grave? Defense reactions get a lot worse against Jarl when you have to pay through Frostbite, which we will almost definitely need to do. Jarl could also just play Channel Lake Frigid Pass, or play Winter's Bite Channel Lake Frigid Pass. We lose cards from hand, we have to pay through Frostbite and Channel Lake, and we don't have our arsenal available. So there is a world where this Arctic Incarceration gives us 4 Frostbites, we have a hand of 4 reds, and we just pass the turn. We literally cannot do anything. And we would really love to be able to pitch 4 red and play a 4 power attack from Arsenal, which forces Jarl to do something. But if we have this loyalty and 4 reds, we literally do not have a turn. And that's really bad. So thankfully we do draw into 2 blues, dealing with this Arctic Incarceration, giving us 4 Frostbites. We even get to pay through the Blizzard and Jarl trigger. It's not going to be an incredible turn. This is just going to be Fire Tenant Strike First coming in for another 3, but here's what I'm saying. Imagine this Loyalty Beyond the Grave was Art of Dragon Blood, and we just get to follow this with 4. Jarl gives us a CNC to block the Fire Tenant, and then has to give us another card to block our 4 power attack from Arsenal. And instead, Jarl gets to just play Felling. So if we come in for 4 with Art of Dragon Blood, Jarl has to block it with Felling of the Crown to not be dead and also have a turn. And then his crackback is pitch Channel Mount Ison to Titan's Fist for 3. And we go, okay, and then we kill Jarl with a 4-card hand. Instead, we need to go down to 3 cards. We will block our Felling of the Crown here with Loyalty Beyond the Grave. We'll take 1 down to 5, and then we still have a fine turn. But this could have been a much, much better situation for us, where we are more insulated against Blizzard, we're more insulated against Jarl being able to block, and we just have a better response than what we now have. Now, to be fair, our response is still going to be really good. We get to Ignite, then play Blaze Headlong. We don't get the Ignite ability, but we keep an Energy Potion in our hand to play through Blizzard. So, you know, we're chilling. Or we Everblade first. I think that's fine too. We are less resilient to Blizzard this way because we would not be able to pay through the Blizzard tax and the Frostbite. We're also pushing less damage, but at the same time, Jarl does still give us cards and probably cannot do anything significant on the crackback. We're pushing lethal here, which is great. Jarl goes down to 2. This Phoenix Flame is going to get a Shuko trigger, so he has to block it. Seeing the Channel Lake Frigid, which I'm curious if Jarl would have arsenaled it or pitched it to Titan's Fist. And here we have a hand that is going to win the game. So it's a little awkward because we have to lead with our yellow. Display Loyalty won't have go again without a second Draconic Chain Link. Blaze Headlong won't get go again without playing a red. So our necessary sequencing here would be Brand with Thunderclaw, Display Loyalty, Blaze Headlong, and what I like as a finisher is then activate FaB, grab one of our 2 Phoenix Flames, and pitch it to play Art of Dragon Fire after we break our fealty. And that threatens 2, 3, 4, 2, 5, which is just a ton of damage. What I'm going to do instead is what I consider to be the wrong decision. It'll still win the game. I'm going to play Art of Dragonfire and pitch Display Loyalty. I think this is just wrong. It does get the brand effect, but like, who cares? We're just threatening less damage. So we do manage to get the win, despite what I consider to be some pretty significant misplays. Starting with the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx break, I can track the reasoning. I think it was wrong, but I can understand why I felt like I had to break it then, because if Jarl does have Mangled Pummel, we'll lose the Pouncing Lynx. But I think it's important to make Jarl show that to us, rather than just opening up the armor slot for him. After that, we had some poor arsenaling decisions, right? The Loyalty Beyond the Grave was a terrible arsenal that could have potentially cost us the game. If that felling is coming in for 8 instead of 4, then suddenly it's a lot more dangerous, and I think we need to block with an extra card from hand. So just some sequencing decisions, some arsenal decisions that were a little wrong. But for the most part, this was a really good stress test for FaB because we were very consistently able to play through the Frostbite tax. And we never got hit with the Channeling Frigid, we never got hit with the Dominated Oaken Old, but we did get hit with multiple Frostfang Pummels. So I feel like, hey, the deck is at least a little resilient to disruption, and I feel good about the way this game went. Not only from a standpoint that we won, but also from how the deck felt. So I think that's replicable. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something. If so, be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free. It helps me out a lot. I have a Blue Sky, a Discord, and a Patreon, links to which are in the video description below. I will be back later this week with more daily FaB gameplay, and until the next time I see you, take care.